Hey guys, we are now in the third week of February. Welcome back to another round of the Recruiting Corner. Welcoming to the panel, Andrew Bruno. How you doing?
Great, Josh. Thanks. I'm excited to be here today.
Fantastic, guys. We have some stuff to go through. But first, I know you want to mention something about Google+.
Yeah, real quick, guys. Athnet, if you add us on Google+, Athnet, we'll send you access to our coaches database. And it has all coaches' contact information, email, phone, and also great information on schools such as location, tuition, everything you need to know. It's a great recruiting tool. If you have any questions on how to get started on Google, add us on Google+, just give us a tweet at Andrew F. Bruno, at Athnet, or at JZimmy67, or you can send an email to info@athleticscholarships.com.
Definitely. You sounded just like an infomercial there. I loved it. So, yeah, guys, definitely Google+ is happening, and we're glad to be a part of it, and you know we love our social media. So we're going to jump right in, get our feet wet. All right, so multi-year scholarships is one of the topics we're going to cover today. Just a quick, brief mention. We're going to talk about transfer restrictions. We're going to talk about whether recruiting should or should not be the spectacle that it's become. We're going to talk about whether coaches should be able to hire other high school coaches for recruiting advantages, as well as talking about parents and whether your parent might be a good sports parent or a very bad sports parent. So lots of things to cover. First off, last week we covered it in the episode, multi-year scholarships, with the vote, whether it was going to be upheld or overturned. It wasn't overturned, so schools now have the option of being able to provide multi-year scholarships for athletes. It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, it'll be a big recruiting advantage for the schools who can afford to give out multi-year scholarships.
Definitely, definitely. So guys, first blog we're going to jump into is one of my favorites. It's Dr. Saturday. Graham Watson wrote an article that talked about the fallout between Randy Edsall and Danny O'Brien. Danny O'Brien was his star quarterback last year. All of a sudden, Danny O'Brien decided he wants to transfer. Randy Edsall says, yeah, you can transfer, but you can't transfer to any of the ACC schools, nor can you transfer to Vanderbilt. Is that even fair?
It's not fair. The NCAA touts a student athlete as being, the most important thing, their education, their experience. But really, at the end of the day, coaches have all the power. They can tell athletes where they can and can't transfer, and athletes can't even talk to another coach until they get a release. And at the end of the day, what's most important? The athlete's education and athlete's athletic experience. And the current rules really hurt athletes.
Definitely, I completely agree. And Andrew made a great point there with the release. Listen, if you want to transfer, that's fine. Put yourself in that mess because it is confusing and it is not easy. Also, you have to approach your coach and the athletic department and get what's called permission to contact. No coach can contact you until you have that, at least in Division I and Division II. So keep that in mind. It's not easy. And plus, the interesting part about this whole situation is that Randy Edsall can decide who can and can't transfer from his program or where they can go. Yet every coach in college sports, not just football, college sports, can transfer to any school they want without restriction.
Yeah, we saw it just happen a couple weeks ago with Greg Schiano. He left Rutgers to go to Tampa Bay in NFL. And Rutgers ended up losing out on a lot of recruits because of it, a lot of top recruits.
I mean, not just Greg Schiano, Lane Kiffin, Todd Graham. There's a mess of coaches that do this year in and year out. All they have to do is pay a small fine as part of the millions of dollars they make every year, and they get to go anywhere. And they really screw programs for long periods of time when they decide to do that. Yet a player can't transfer to another program where he might get a great education.
Or maybe he wants to study something that's offered at a different school, but exactly because of football restrictions.
Yeah, it's definitely not fun, guys. Next, we have two articles that are sort of surrounded around Devontae Neal. The first one is by writer Alex Williams in the Daily Wildcat. He wrote an article that basically talked about the spectacle that high school recruiting has become and whether or not it's really worth the time and effort that we put in to these athletes that might be busts in college. And I'm going to ask your opinion, but before I ask your opinion, I just want to make a point. And remember that with the NFL, and when they passed the new CBA, a huge part of that collective bargaining agreement was the fact that unproven rookies, make way too much money. And
More money than a lot of veterans.
Yeah, the veterans don't make enough. Okay. So these veterans that have proved themselves over seasons and become great athletes aren't making enough money, while these kids that are coming straight out of college are making fortunes.
$50 million guaranteed.
Exactly. So basically, we look at that and say, okay, the NFL fixed that and said, you know what, we recognize this as an issue. Are we spending too much time and effort and money, and these coaches all this time they put forth towards these athletes when they might or might not be the next greatest thing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's two big reasons that this is bad for athletes. One, the first is that these athletes that are getting recruited and the spectacles surrounding them, it's detrimental to them because there's so much pressure placed on them. They're young kids, they're in high school, they're living with their parents. I mean, going to college in and of itself is a lot of pressure, but then all the added media coverage, it's tough for them. But the other thing it affects is the other 98, 99% of athletes out there that aren't the top recruits. I mean, you tune into ESPN on National Signing Day, and you see that you see all the recruits up there, where they're signing, and it makes athletes think that, hey, coaches, if I'm good enough, are going to come and find me. And we preach here at Athnet all the time that you need to be proactive and go out there, talk to the coaches at the schools you're interested in, and take your recruiting into your own hands. It's not like it is for the top 1%.
Definitely. And there's one huge key word there, and that's proactive. Listen, you're probably, likely, almost guaranteed to be in that 99%. Congratulations if you're part of the 1%, but the rest of the world is part of that 99%, which means that you're probably not going to be on the ESPN U150. You're probably not ranked by Rivals. You're probably not ranked by Max Preps or any other ranking media site. Listen, you have to go out and make things happen. And unfortunately, yes, we spend way too much time and energy and effort towards that 1% and not enough time promoting that 99%. Promote yourself, do what you need to do to make things happen, and don't get caught in the spectacle. The next article on Devontae Neal, and just to introduce him, 5-star athlete out of Arizona, one of the top prospects in the country. When Rich Rodriguez was hired by University of Arizona, he basically made it a point that Devontae Neal was going to be his go-to recruit. That's the kid he wanted out of the state of Arizona. He was going to recruit in his backyard. To do that, and I love this, to do that and to get an advantage, he hires Devontae Neal's high school coach as the recruiting liaison for the state of Arizona. Is that even near being legal?
It's legal right now in football. They just outlawed it in basketball. The AAU coaches would have a lot of power in where kids would go because the top AAU teams would shuffle the best players to certain programs, and those coaches would in turn get hired by those programs. But in football right now, it's not illegal, but it probably should be. I mean, not all schools are able to hire coaches, and also, again, we come back to the point we just talked about. It's not in the athlete's best interest if you hire somebody's high school coach just to get them to come to school because you want them to play for you.
The interesting part with that, and it sort of backfired for Arizona because Devontae Neal, he wanted to go to Arizona, but his father wanted him to go to Notre Dame. We covered it a few episodes ago about the influence your parents have on your decisions, and he ended up going to Notre Dame, which means although Rich Rodriguez got a couple great in-state recruits, he did not get his holy grail of recruits for this year.
And now he may be stuck with somebody he didn't actually want to work for. Maybe,
exactly.
Maybe he is qualified, but...
Yeah, we want to think that Rich Rodriguez hired this coach on merit and said maybe he's a great guy, maybe they have a relationship, whatever it is, but
it's tough to say.
I'm pretty sure there's a hidden agenda there, especially when you come out and say that I want this kid, and you just happen to be his high school coach. Next article, guys, Stephen Henson wrote an article titled, "What Makes a Nightmare Sports Parent and What Makes a Great One?" And this is interesting because there were two gentlemen that spent 3 decades, that's older than I am, well older than what you guys are, 3 decades, polling college coaches, or college athletes, interviewing them about how they felt their parents were involved, basically how they felt on their parents' involvement in their youth sports, high school sports, and collegiate sports, and basically their reactions towards it. And they came up with criteria on what makes a great sports parent and really where the bad sports parents fell into. Read the article. We're putting it in the notes at the bottom. But besides that, my question for you is, are parents too involved these days in their athletes' lives?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to generalize because there's a lot of great parents out there. There's a lot of parents who are too overbearing, and there's a majority of you probably fall right there in the middle. But we've seen it happen. We know a kid who was an ESPN top 40 recruit, and his dad got too involved, told college coaches how it was going to be, what he wanted, what the dad wanted, everything about the dad, and the kid ended up having to go to a Division II school because all Division I offers dried up. And Division II is still a great level of competition, but for a top 40 recruit, ESPN top 40 recruit, it's not the way it should be.
I mean, and that's the deal right there. If you're a parent, listen, support your kid, help your kid out, financially support them if they need to go make visits and camps and stuff. But make sure you're not picking up the phone and calling coaches. They don't want to hear from you. Make sure you're supporting your son or daughter to pick up the phone and call coaches. Try not to get too involved because problems like this do happen. Listen, I love to call them American Idol parents, and that's because you feel that your child is the best in the world. Whether they are or not, that's great if your child's a great athlete, but there's other great athletes out there, and coaches recognize talent. It's not your job to sell your child. It's your child's job to sell themselves. And if a coach feels that the child is talented enough and mature enough to get a scholarship or a walk-on opportunity or have an opportunity just to be part of college athletics, then it's going to happen. As long as you make it happen, but don't push too much, all right? So that's what we have today. I'm going to jump off my soapbox there for a minute and wish you guys the best. Thanks for tuning in. If you have questions, you ever want to say anything to us, definitely contact us. That's Andrew F. Bruno at Athnet and at JZimmy67. You guys have a great one. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, guys. Don't forget to add us on Google+.
There you go.